At some point, when you knew Mr. Floyd, did you learn of his mother's death?
Yes.
Did you recall when that was?
It was in May of 2018.
And did you see, well, describe, if you would, for the jury, what you saw his reaction to his mother's death.
Floyd's what I would call a mama's boy. I could tell from the minute I met him. And when he came back from Houston, he seemed kind of like a shell of himself. Like he was broken. He seemed so sad. He didn't have the same kind of bounce that he had. He was devastated. He loved his mom so much, and I knew that. He talked about her all the time. I knew how he felt. It's so hard to lose a parent that you love like that.
Ms. Ross, thank you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'll see if I can ask some questions to help a little, okay? So he struggled with grief over his mother's death?
Excuse me, yes.
And going to change topics a bit, okay?
Okay.
All right. You need a minute? Are you okay?
I'm okay. I can do it.
You met Mr. Floyd at Salvation Army.
Yes.
And then proceeded to maintain a relationship with him.
Yes.
And I have to ask you if drug use was a part of that relationship.
Yes.
And what kind of drug use was a part of that relationship?
Floyd and I both suffered with an opioid addiction.
And do you know how, like for your own self,
yeah.
how you came to be involved, with what kind of drugs and how you became involved?
Opioids. Yes. Both Floyd and I, our story, it's a classic story of how many people get addicted to opioids. We both suffered from chronic pain. Mine was in my neck and his was in his back. We both had prescriptions. But after prescriptions that were filled and we got addicted and tried really hard to break that addiction many times.
And were you each aware of each other's struggles with opioids?
Yes, eventually in our relationship we shared that.
And did you sort of work together on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And over how long of a period did this struggle go on for you, for both of you?
Addiction, in my opinion, is a lifelong struggle. So it's something that we dealt with every day. It's not something that just kind of comes and goes. It's something I'll deal with forever.
And were there periods of time when you were not using opioids?
Absolutely.
And same question with regard to Mr. Floyd.
Yes, absolutely.
And were there times when you knew that he was using opioids more than by prescription?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And when you weren't using, prescription opioids, where did you get them?
Off the street.
Okay.
On the black market.
And you knew that he was doing that as well.
Yes.
And turning your attention to, well, let me ask this. You were in a relationship for nearly 3 years.
Yes.
And did this use of opioids beyond even prescriptions sort of continue throughout that 3-year period for Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
And something that you saw yourself and were aware of.
Yes.
And I have to ask the same question of you. Did you struggle using during that entire period?
Yes.
And were there times when you would use together?
Yes.
And for what you saw Mr. Floyd using, what form of opioids did he typically use?
Oxycontin or oxycodone and, any kind of oxy.
And how did he get that? How did he use it?
Swallow them?
And so in pill form?
Yes. Sorry.
That's right. Not the easiest question to ask, for you. So I'm sorry.
It's okay.
If you ever don't understand my question, feel free to ask.
Okay.
Or let me know. Okay. And so there were times when you would obtain non-prescription opiate pills together?
Yes, they would be other people's prescriptions.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
They would be other people's prescriptions.
And were there sometimes, why would you get them through other people's prescriptions? What do you mean?
To make sure they were safe.
And were there times then that you had to get pills other than, from what you knew were somebody else's prescriptions?
Yes.
And were there times when you thought that maybe Mr. Floyd wasn't using or was using, but not with you, not in your presence?
Yes. There was a time.
And were there times when you were using together? I guess that's a poorly worded question already. Let me just ask it this way. Did you use the same amounts when you used?
Yes.
And taking your attention to March of 2020, and there was a time in March when you knew he was back to using pills. Is that right?
I thought his behavior had changed.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I think when you know someone who suffers with any type of addiction, you can start to kind of see changes when they're using again. And there's just slight behavioral changes that I noticed in him, and it just made me suspect.
And in March of 2020, did you also kind of fall back into using
Yes,
some?
I did.
So you, and were you two using together back in March, or you just suspected his use?
In March, yes, we did use together.
And was there a period then after March where you thought the two of you had both been able to quit for a while?
Yes, a long period.
And then kind of going forward to May of 2020, was there a time when you thought he might be using again?
Yes.
So in May, when you thought that, what led you to think that?
It was the same type of thing, just behavior changes in Floyd.
And did you also kind of fall back to using opioids in May of 2020?
One time, yes.
And he was aware of that?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.